on Spotify or our T1D Huddle website. So we kindly ask everyone to mute if you're not speaking. That way we won't have some interference in the background. To make sure that the session runs smoothly, we're going to have two ground rules. The first one is only one person speaks at a time. So just if you can be respectful of one another, that'd be great. Number two, if a discussion associated with a specific question goes beyond a reasonable time, I'll give it a warning signal, and that person will have about 10 seconds to wrap up their commentary. So that being said, the introduction, Teri brings both lived and professional expertise to diabetes care, having been diagnosed with type 1 in 1989 and as a parent of a child with type 1. She's been a certified diabetes educator since 1995 and an insulin pump trainer since the early days of pump therapy, reflecting her longstanding commitment to advancing diabetes technology. Her clinical experience spans both type 1 and type 2 diabetes education, pediatric diabetes, and diabetes in pregnancy. Passionate about innovation, Teri has consistently been an early adopter of emerging technologies, particularly in insulin pump therapy and continuous glucose monitoring, or CGM. Currently, she works as a clinical diabetes specialist with Tandem Diabetes Care and as a diabetes consultant with PHSA Nursing Support Services. In these roles, she has helped standardize provincial care plans, integrate CGM into school settings, and provide ongoing education to support safe diabetes care in schools across British Columbia. Teri, I'm going to hand it off to you.
Okay, thanks. I should probably clarify. I didn't check that currently at the bottom. So I'm actually working in a diabetes clinic doing with adult type 1s right now. I still do a lot of work with children in schools to make sure that children with diabetes are getting equitable and standardized care. So that's sort of my two. I have worked in industry numerous times over the 30 years. I always like to be in sort of the cutting edge early days of Medtronic as a clinical specialist, with Animas as a clinical specialist, and then lastly as Tandem before. And I go back and forth with the health because I do really love being on the ground and caring for people. So I'm going to do, I understand I get like about 10 minutes or so with PowerPoint. So we must start with death by PowerPoint. And then we can get back into more questions. And I did get some of the questions that you guys did put in. And I think a lot of it will be covered. But again, I can only put too many slides in for a short time like that. So bear with me. I'm just going to get to share. Okay. There it is. Oh, sharing. Sharing is not turned on. Somebody has to turn that on. Okay, thank you. Try that again. Okay. Now I have to find my presentation, apparently. Sorry, bear with me. Does anybody have any questions while I'm trying to fill out there? Oh, no, can't do that.
I think Alana, do you have a copy?
It's on my screen.
Oh, okay.
I just can't get it to share. Let's.
I do have a copy, so if you'd like me to share it.
Oh, found it. Okay. I did change it a little bit. You know, you always got to change to the last minute because I like to make that. Okay, sorry about that, you guys. So really about navigating the AID systems in BC. So I'm going to do a review of the ones that are available in British Columbia. So a couple of people asked about, you know, why would I want to do a pump if I'm doing really great on MDI? And some of the advantages that we saw even 25 years ago were more precise insulin delivery, really that it's connected to that rapid acting insulin, because rapid acting insulin has about a 3% variability for every injection of action, where longer actings are up to about 36%. So you can be more flexible and less variability. Lots of evidence of improved glucose with less lows. And then you get a calculator all built in. And one thing we like to stress for a lot of people is the quality of life. So here are the 4 Health Canada approved automated insulin delivery systems. I'm going to go through each of them a little bit more, but you can see that the cool thing now with each of them, so Control IQ, you have an app which allows you to not have to upload anymore, but also to bolus from your phone or from your pump. So it gives that little flexibility. So if you leave your phone, it doesn't matter because everything is also controlled on your pump. MiniMed has the ability to look at all your data on your phone. They've got an app, and it also, you can manually sync to the cloud. And I might be saying all this because I love it as a healthcare professional that people don't have to download it home, and I actually can see the data. Omnipod 5, it's a little different in that it's not phone controlled. It's got its own controller. So you need to carry the controller. And if you like a phone with you, you need to also you're going to be also carrying a phone. So it is a separate device that they do provide to you. And then lastly, My Life Chem APS. It also has a phone that does all the controlling, even the basals and stuff like that. And the pump that comes with it is a little smaller, but it doesn't have really many brain components of it. You need the phone app to really do much. So this more I want to just give you, tells you about some of the great websites that tell you all about these things. So the type1better.com, it's an organization that's more about, it's looking into hypoglycemia with type 1s, but they have a good comparison of everything that's here in Canada. And if you were looking to know, how much insulin is it going to hold? It's everything from 160 up to 300. And whether it's waterproof, what sensor are used, does it have tubing or not, that kind of thing, then you can get all the, even size, dimensions. I also want to show you DIY looping, because in British Columbia, we have probably likely the most loopers. Because it is an AID system, but it also is covered. So because you're hacking the Omnipod Dash pod with the phone, then you can actually get one. And the Omnipod's covered by Health Canada or Pharmacare, and so is the Dexcom. So you made a system that was actually available and easy to get access to, especially because we have a clinic in BC at BC Diabetes that does all the work for you and builds the app, and then you come and they just put it on your phone. So we'll talk a bit about that. So the pump coverage in BC, unfortunately, today, or was it yesterday? I can't even remember. It's a blur. Yesterday they came out with their coverage that we were waiting for on devices and did not come out with anything that's helpful. So they're still going to cover the Omnipod Dash and pods, the Medtronic 780G and the supplies, but the Ipsomed, the normal Ipsomed, not the AID system. And then Tandem, they only cover the supplies. But with Medtronic, they don't cover their sensors. So when we look at what is the AID coverage in BC, Ipsomed with CAM APS is the only Health Canada approved system that they are paying, that they're supporting through Pharmacare. And then Medtronic, you don't have coverage for the sensors. Tandem, you don't have a coverage for the pump itself, but Dexcom is covered. Omnipod, no coverage right now for the pods or the pump with Omnipod 5, but the Dexcom is covered. and the interesting thing that I found quite interesting is that Ipsomed doesn't have a team here. They don't have sales representatives or clinical specialists in the province, but they are the only system that is covered. So just talking about the basic principles of AID, that are wondering why. AID pivotal trials and pretty much every body of evidence that's come out in the last 2 to 5 years has proven that an AID system will miraculously improve your time in range, decreases the burden on people. I mean, I can't say that I've ever had anybody I put on an AID system, whichever system it is, that has not immediately seen results by 2 weeks. Because some pumps you start automation right away, some you can't. It has to learn you. But I wanted to just give you the foundation kind of important things about AID. So CGM is the foundation of your AID system. That means if your CGM is not working or is kind of off, or let's say it's losing connection a lot, that means your system is not working. It's going back to your manual basals. Pre-bolusing is still really important to get the best outcomes. We know that 99% of people do not do that, but at least bolusing beforehand, because you actually become at a much higher risk for hypoglycemia if you bolus after. I'm going to explain why that. You need to treat hypoglycemia with smaller amounts, usually 5 grams to 10 at max, because these systems have already suspended your insulin well in advance, and obviously maybe even reduced it. So there's not really any IOB sitting there. So then you take it and you go really high if you overdo it. Another important feature is suspending your pump. I know that all the years we trained pumps, which we now kind of call dumb pumps, when we were teaching them, we didn't often say, worry about suspending your pump, just put it on the counter while you have a shower. We weren't really insistent on it. But now it's really important because you need to avoid IOB inaccuracies, because if you're even close to that sensor and maybe you're having a shower and it's on the counter and it picks up that your glucose is increasing, it's going to increase your basal, it's going to give you automatic corrections, and it's then going to take that into consideration as your IOB. You don't want to override bolus calculations. For some people, it's really difficult to let the pump have control, but it's one of those things that if you fight the system and the algorithm, typically you're going to lose and see much more variability and hypoglycemia. Exercise is tricky for any person with type 1 diabetes. I mean, I've been to so many seminars on it, and I have, we could talk about it in nauseam, and it's still not going to be perfect. Does automation make it better? Some people say yes, it's really helpful, it pulls back, but it is a whole new way of learning how to treat it. The need to trust in the system. It's trying to get you, all automation systems are trying to get as much time in range between 4 and 10. So for instance, with the one above, the exercise, if you glucose load before you exercise, well, your double arrow's up and the systems are going to recognize that you're going up really fast. We need to get you down because we do not want your blood sugar over 10. So then otherwise you're going to crash. So we learn strategies. Each system has different strategies on how to deal with exercise, but it is important. The other thing is that you need to be more mindful of alerts and alarms. I'm sure many of you use, whether it's a Dexcom, a Libre, or maybe you're using the Medtronic sensor, Guardian 4. It will give you alerts, highs and lows if you don't have them turned off. And a lot of people will just hit confirm, like, shut up, please. And same with what we do with pumps. But there are so many alerts that are going to tell you that you're going to be taken out of automation. So you need to see those ones. And it might be that you need to put a blood sugar in. It might be that you need to do attention to something else, but they will outline it in those alerts. So I was trying to do a recap of each of them as adjustable. So it as a healthcare professional who's seeing all the different pumps, it's really hard to wrap your head around sometimes what can be changed for when. And so the good thing is when you're using it, you're only using one system, so you will figure out what to change. But they each have different abilities as to what you need to do. So with the 780G, there's the two key things are active insulin time and carb ratio. Where with T-Slim, it has the most customizable with the basal rates, the correction factor, and a carb ratio. Omnipod 5 is heavily driven by the target, so whatever that target is. Then for bolusing, it's your usual correction factor, carb ratio, and time. And then looking at the Ipsomed, which I did not, complete there. The glucose target is the number one driver, and then the carb ratio for your boluses. They each have an adjustment for doing exercise. You can see temp target, they call it different things, exercise activity, activity feature, and also down at the bottom, Ipsomed has a target as well, a temp target. So somebody had asked, we really want to know, here are some of the pros and cons of this. And I will tell you, these are very objective, like from other literature, so that it's kind of, because it really is personal. So this is coming from a couple of different articles of people expressing, but when you think about them, you may already know some of these, but looking first at the Medtronic, and I call it that. It's not that anymore. It's called MiniMed. They've gone back to MiniMed. The pros are it's automated basal adjustments, and it does micro corrections as well. And then also it does have a strong hypoprotection feature that they would say if they're in their literature. Some of the cons are the sensor. That's been an ongoing challenge for the life of the Medtronic sensor. And so some people will be frustrated by the fact that it doesn't last 7 days and that sometimes the accuracy is off. And remember that your sensor is the most important piece of your automated delivery. So you want to really keep an eye on. It does require BG nows. Some people will tell me it's more than once a day. Some people it's daily. Some can get a couple days, but essentially the sensor is constantly checking its health. And if it sees that there's a lots of variability happening in the background when it does its every 5 seconds checks, it will tell you to put a BG in now. So you do need to have a meter with you, because if you don't put that BG in now, you will be out of automation. Another complaint or con that people really are not happy with is the bulky size of it. And then moving over to Omnipod 5, it's essentially been the latest addition to the AID family. The pros are for people who do not want any chewing. They are the pods. This is something that they're very excited about. The pod is waterproof, and it does use Dexcom. The cons are it's got probably the least aggressive algorithm of all of them. It doesn't really have an auto bolus or auto corrections. And the pod size and adhesive issues are really main up in front. So they do make some really good pieces of things to try, but I would say it's a 50-50 where people are going to have some problems with rashes, cellulitis, some getting good infections. But with good skincare regime, it's good. And you also do need to carry 2 things. You need to carry your phone and which is kind of about the same size. The T Slim Control IQ, the pros are that it does do auto basal adjustments every 5 minutes. However, it's based on predicted 30 minutes ahead, and it can go up to 400 times the basal rate that it's at. It has auto corrections every 1 hour, and that's based on your predicted number 30 minutes from now if it's over 10. Then there's customizable profiles. So for people who want flexibility and want to exercise and they want their circulating insulin to drop by 50% right now or even down to 75%, you can set that up with a less aggressive correction factor as well as for different things like travel and all that kind of stuff. It's upgradable software. So that means it's charged by a micro USB. And because it has that ability, it's also upgradable for software. So the mobile bolus came out just a few months ago in December, and everybody who had a pump that was in warranty in the last 5 years will get that free. So they just hook up and there's a platform to do that. It has Dexcom G6 and G7, and now that it has a mobile bolus, it's cloud-based. Some of the cons are for some people, having a pump they have to charge is a struggle. They like the convenience of carrying batteries with them all the time and find that easier. The pump is, when it's fully charged, it's good for 5 days. And so if you're camping remotely, you do need to bring a battery bank to recharge it. And then also it is a pump with tubing, similarly to Medtronic. Ipsomed with CAM APS, it's been approved for a while. It is very popular in Europe. So CAM APS is Cambridge University. It's their algorithm that they built. So when you look at England and Scotland, all those, a lot of people use it. The pro is it adjusts basal rates and gives auto corrections. The algorithm is completely on the phone, so you do everything on the phone, from settings to bolusing, and it does this boost and ease off features, which are pretty cool. You just hit it and then you get more for boost, or you can ease off and it will just do it right then. And you can actually tell how long you want that, kind of like a temp basal would be, I guess, or, setting the other target. Right now, it only uses a G6, but it's been approved for the Libre 3 as well. And it's certainly the smallest pump. The cons are you're heavily reliant on the phone. So, you really want to have your phone with you all the time. And there's no support currently in BC, though there are some really good clinical people in Ontario that are helping out. And even somebody I heard now is maybe in Alberta. And we do have a few trainers in BC. The DIY, the pros, and again, why we've seen it, is it's a fully fair pharmacare covered system. It's customizable. It doesn't have all the safety nets that commercialized systems require. So people like that they can, change it whenever and go down as low as they want or high. It is cloud-based. The cons are that it's not Health Canada approved, and the troubleshooting could be very challenging for those that are not tech savvy, because the app can crash and has to be rebuilt, or you have to get it again from BC Diabetes, and if it's on a weekend, that's not going to happen. They have their own little Facebook group, so people have to try to ask each other for help. And then the other thing is the phone reliability. You absolutely have to have your phone near you. You can't go outside and be doing something and the phone's inside, because you'll be reverted over to your basal rates, no automation. I think I have some tips, and because you're going to have this presentation, I will send it with you because these are just some tips for each of them. And so there is a lot of exercise strategies. There is a really good consensus document that's been developed and presented at the EASD, which is a very big conference about technology that's done every year. And we have quite a few Canadians on it. Jane Yardley is in Ottawa, Mike Riddell is Ontario. So there are some really good voices in there. And this here is the additional, this is where you can actually learn all about that. See, it's got a really good, it goes to it, it outlines it. And the cool thing is that you can put your system in. Say, I'm using a MiniMed 780G. I want to know what to do with exercise, and it gives you, you can go and just look at that pump, and each of these pumps, actually, they're all on there. So that's really helpful.
Okay.
That is speedy.
Okay.
Sorry.
Sorry, I was just gonna say I'm happy to read the questions off. I know you've seen them already. Does that work for you, Teri? If I read them and then you answer them?
Totally
And
can.
a lot of the questions I think you have addressed in the presentation. However, I think it's great that we're kind of asking again. So repetition has never hurt when it comes to education. So I'm not going to ask them necessarily in the order that you have them, but I think you've seen all of them. All right, and I encourage folks to go ahead and enter questions you have in the chat box, and I will definitely look at that and ask the question when it's in the same conversation. So let's start with number one. In British Columbia, what are the best systems that have any provincial insurance coverage? So I think for you, it's an opinion question.
Yeah, so really the only one that actually has coverage is Ipsomed. And I have not had my hands on one or been terrible. I had it before they had the automation, so not seeing, having been able to do it, but I'm hearing really good things about it from some of the endocrinologists that are using it already, and a couple of my friends that have just started being pump trainers. So I've actually heard it's the most aggressive algorithm of the commercial products, but that could be them bragging, but it is well used for sure.
Okay. The person who asked that question, if you are on screen, would you like to follow up? I do see some questions in the chat box. The systems that use the phone for bolusing, and do they need access to cellular data to work?
It depends on what you're using it for, but yes, to bolus, do any of those things. Like there's some bit of it's Bluetooth, but you are going to have cellular coverage, or yeah, a plan.
Okay, and another question in the chat box. Any sign of Abbott's Freestyle Libre CGM hooking up with a pump maker?
So the Libre 2 Plus is integrated with the Tandem pump in the US, and the Medtronic has now made a partnership with Abbott to make a Libre specific to their pump, because they don't like to share. They want their own Libre one, so it'll only work with their pump. And I do believe Ipsomed, yes. So Ipsomed has been approved for the Libre 3 Plus. So I don't know of anybody that's actually using it. That's why it only works on Androids, okay? Because at the beginning, it was only Android phones with Ipsomed, but now we do have the ones on the other. And the other thing is all of these systems are available with simulator apps. So you can actually download them and play like you have the pump there. And the Ipsomed, yes, it is a tubed pump. The pod is the only one that is not tubed. Even a lot of people ask about the Tandem Mobi, which has been available in the US for 2 years. I believe they have submitted to Health Canada, and that looks like it's not a tubed pump, but it still has a 5-inch tubing so that you can use different infusion sets based on your body. So if you want steel needle, if you want angled or straight.
Susan, did you want to follow up on that? Okay. Question from Ed. I'm 80 years old today. Happy birthday, Ed.
Happy
Type 1
birthday.
for 70 years. Does
That's
this mean
truly
I'm no
amazing.
longer eligible for coverage for the Medtronic 780G?
Um,
Oh, was that a
I don't
joke?
think that has anything to do with age at all.
That was a joke. Sorry.
Oh, okay. But I will say that Medtronic, for people that are set, do the same thing every day, that's a really good option. But good job.
Did you want to follow up, Ed?
You're
Okay.
muted.
All right. Next question. Are you aware of what is coming down? I mean, I know the
Oh,
coverage just came out,
Ed's.
but in the near future, are you aware of what's coming down the pipe? So to speak in Canada and then specifically in British Columbia?
I feel bad. Ed, do you want to ask your question now that you got yourself
Go ahead
unmuted?
with the last one.
Okay. And so we're talking about pipeline,
Hmm.
what's available down there. So there's lots of people purchasing things. We know what's down the pipeline of Tandem because it's already available in the US. And so that will be the Mobi pump, which is it's really like the size of iPod carrier. When you have your iPods, that little thing, that's what the size of it is. And it has the brains on it, but you still can change the small infusion set, or you can use a big one. So it has some options there. With Medtronic, I don't know of anything that's particularly coming right now that's higher. But they have been booking lunches, so I feel like something's impending to come. Even if it's a technology upgrade, that will be. And they also went into an agreement with Libre, and they also have bought their own patch pump years ago, and also another sensor that's longer, just waiting for those things to get. Usually we watch the US to get most of that stuff. And Omnipod 5, I have not heard of any updates yet, but I think they're going to be fast on it because they delayed getting to market, and now they need to up the game a little bit. And Ipsomed, we're just happy to know that we have it now. So and again, it's probably one of the more aggressive things, but I don't know of anything other than sensor updates. Like, we have to get the G7 with Ipsomed as soon as possible because the G6 is no longer going to be made as of July this year. So they need to get Health Canada approval for G7 and get integrated.
Okay.
Does that
Ed,
answer
can
that?
you, now that you can unmute, did you want to
Yeah,
follow up?
yeah. I don't remember what the question was. Yeah. The indications are that you said you had to learn to trust the Medtronic 780G to make the algorithm work properly. I have yet to be able to do that. I find that it's not aggressive enough when I'm rapidly rising in blood sugar. And what I do is I make the assumption mentally that I didn't have enough carbs in there in the first place. So I introduce more carbs to bring up the insulin level. And that seems to be working very well for me. I'm in range about 95 to 98% of the time. So I don't know what to say about it.
Well, even though they say don't fake carbs to get more insulin, because they don't allow you to do corrections. So that
No,
is
they
really
don't.
what a lot of people do, is
Yes.
they fake carbs so that they can get more insulin. So we find our way with what we have. Because it doesn't have that flexibility, but that's all of these. So the Ipsomed, the Omnipod 5, and the Medtronic all learn and adapt. So you can't really change basals, right? So if you can see that you're high, so they're each different. So when you go through and look at that, if a person has a lot of variability in their life, like they exercise or they're constantly on planes getting highs or a long haul driver, things are changing all the time in their insulin needs, then sometimes those systems are not as effective because you can't adjust and start again. But if you're getting 98% time in range, hello, who would not want that? That's awesome.
Great. Patrick, did you want to ask your question, or I can ask it on your behalf? I'll just read it what it says in the chat box. Thanks for explaining about the Libre CGM and Medtronic Plus Ipsomed. Is that available in Canada?
Yes.
Yeah, all available.
Thank you.
Great. Let's see anything else in the chat box. All right. So next question. Could you provide a practical comparison between Ipsomed and Tandem AID systems? Not just features, but real world factors like customer support, supply availability, and long-term reliability in Canada and internationally. I'm currently trying to evaluate my options.
Right. Well, between those two in particular, we don't have a lot of real world data at all on Ipsomed, even Canadian wide. But certainly in the European space, it is well regarded. They do work very different in how their algorithms work, where Tandem, how it works is you use your base settings, so your basal rate, your carb ratio, and your sensitivity. And as your basal is going, it just tweaks up and down as it's needed, 30 minutes in advance. Where Ipsomed is more of an adaptive one. So it kind of learns what you're doing, and then it will adapt based on your total daily dose. It's not that there isn't a total daily dose effect with the Tandem, but it is by no means the driver, but it is a driver in some of the other systems. I think that they're probably the two most aggressive algorithms to get people to where they want to be, especially if they want to get into the lower ranges and get those low A1Cs. But there's always a sacrifice of hypoglycemia with a lot of these systems, unless you live your life pretty regular, and that's a little bit more difficult. But I wish I had more practical with Ipsomed. I did speak with an endo last week, and she is loving it, but she's using it a lot on her patients that are struggling to have control at all, that don't bolus. So they're going from 30% time in range up like 30%. So huge win. But I do believe that anybody that's there, any automated system is going to give you a big boost. The bonuses, it's covered.
Okay. Yeah, the person who asked that question, would you like to follow up? Okay, Teri, I want to ask about Ipsomed. Given that there's no customer support, how problematic is that? I mean, like, do you just have to call the UK to get someone to talk to you if you decide to do Ipsomed?
There is now Ipsomed Canada website.
Okay.
And you would start with there and find somebody. Like the first few people that have gotten on them, they've had to get it. Like I had a really hard time getting in touch with somebody to help me when I did the presentation for BC Peds Days. But since then, I've been able to get in touch with them, and they're wonderful. But it's all done remotely from Ontario, and they do say they're going to get a sales team, like at least have a sales rep that can help you with the insurance stuff, because you still have to submit to pharmacare. You've got all these documents you still have to do. But I have to believe now that they just released what they did yesterday, they're going to have feet on the ground here to support us as a province, as far as that goes.
Okay, Susan just put something in a comment. So Omnipod 5 supplies are not covered by BC Medical, but Dash is.
So and this has happened to a couple of people that I know, that they did the $650 upgrade to the Omnipod 5, but the pods are not covered by pharmacare. So that means it's not going towards your deductible and you're not getting any coverage. So you do need to ensure you have extended medical for the Omnipod 5, because it's the only one where the actual day-to-day changes are not covered. So it's a dicey one.
Okay. Susan, did you want to follow up? All right, next question. What is your, I don't know this terminology, but what is your experience with Trio and how does it compare to Loop?
So I'm wondering if Trio was a spell check, because I'm not sure what Trio is.
Okay.
That I'm not sure of.
The person
Because I did
who,
look.
yeah,
There was
I
something
was like, I've never heard of, what is this
I've never
newfangled
heard of that.
thing?
So I don't know if anybody put that question in.
Yeah, if I could actually pop in, Trio is one of the open source apps available. It's analogous to Loop. It is a little more complex, but it's also an app available on iPhone. It does the same thing as Loop, just a different
Oh,
algorithm.
I have not seen anybody on it. We haven't even seen a lot of people on the Android APS because it's a lot more technical. So they don't have the same support that looping has, especially in BC. Thanks, Rachel. Though I have to now find out.
Rachel, would you like to introduce yourself since you
Oh
are a
yeah,
technologist?
sure. So my name is Rachel. I work at BC Diabetes as a technologist. So yeah, I actually install people on Loop. At BC Diabetes, we do consultations to talk about all your automated insulin options. So I'm one of those people that sits with you for an hour to discuss. Otherwise, my day-to-day is just helping people adjust on these open source systems. So we actually do support Android APS as well, but you're right, it is a lot more technical.
It's a lot more technical. I remember that.
Yeah,
But
when
tell
other
me about
clinics,
Trio.
yeah, so basically, if we go all the way to the beginning of open source, it started as one algorithm called Open APS. Then it kind of branched off into like the more basic iPhone app Loop. It is a little more like polished. And then like IAPS, Trio, and Loop are kind of where we're at now for three different options you can have on iPhone. Trio and IAPS are very similar to the AAPS, Android APS algorithm. So if you're familiar with that algorithm, you're familiar with kind of how Trio works.
Okay.
Trio and IAPS are a little more complex than Loop. We generally default to Loop for everyone on iPhone. We do support Trio though.
Cool.
Okay, next question. And Patrick, yes, we can, I think Teri said you would supply the slides or make it available to folks. All right. Next question. When I tried the Medtronic 780G AID system, I had to change my carb ratio, so I was getting more insulin at meal boluses. Does this usually happen with a move to AID systems?
It's a good question. I would say depending on your system. Some systems rely more on carb ratio than others. Like, for instance, with the 780G, having a strong carb ratio is really important. That's kind of one of the places you go to get tighter and tighter control. And we're systems where you can, a lot of people prior to AID fed their insulin. So they tended to eat a lot more, and so they took more bolus, or they would have high basal, so they didn't have to bolus as much. Like when you had a traditional pump, I would say as a general rule, we see 40% is basal and 60% is bolus, because you are getting a little bit more aggressive and your pump suspending in the background if you are bolusing well. But I do see that for sure.
And a follow-up question to the same question, follow-up is, which AID systems, this might be a repeat, let you use your own basal levels?
So yeah, that's going to be Tandem and looping. Both have sort of the same idea, where they use your baseline and then you go up and down from that, as well as correction factor and carb ratio.
Okay, did the person who submitted that question like to follow up? All right, next question, which would like to know advantages of using a pump for bolus, meals only, and basal via MDI. Advantages, drawbacks to this approach?
So we used to it's kind of almost like, what do we used to call it? The tethered method. But I think for people who absolutely hate doing injections, that could be maybe an advantage. In fact, Medtronic sells a port that you could, just like their infusion set, the Mios, that's 90-degree angles, that you can put on wear for 3 days, and you just do your injections into that. So for people who don't want to do the extra injections, I think, we're always trying to get rid of the long acting from MDI. So I'm not sure that I would see overly benefits, but one of the things that people used to do is do 50% basal insulin and 50% basal pump. That way they never went into DKA because they always had circulating insulin going around. I don't see that as much anymore because it will impact the total daily dose, which is going to impact your AID system. But from a normal pump, yeah, people do it if they don't want to take all those injections.
Would the person who submitted that question like to follow up? All right, next, I'm currently on MDI with Dexcom G7. One problem I have is that if I go out to an event or I am going to be driving a long distance, my glucose may be quite low at first, say a 5. But by the time the event finishes, it may have gone up to 13 or more. Will an AID system prevent that from happening?
So I would say yes. It would. It's going to recognize that you're going up, so it's going to give you some extra basal. Like people who take long plane rides, long car rides, that coming in really nice, get in the car, and then they drive for 6 or 8 hours. They're going to have high blood sugars if they don't have more insulin on board and take boluses more regularly. Where with AID, it will actually. Now, having said that, it depends on the system, but you can actually get that extra basal or micro corrections to some degree so that it won't have to be as high. Not all systems are as aggressive, so it does depend on that.
Okay, follow up to that question is, say I tell the device that I'm going to have a certain size meal, but the meal turns out to be bigger or smaller than I thought. Will I then go high or low as the case may be, or will the device just adjust?
Yeah, the devices can adjust about 20%. If you're way off, then likely it's still not going to stop you from going high, and you can't pull back if it's lots of IOB. But yeah, it'll suspend right away. It's just that you can't take back insulin, and it won't be giving you any more, but you can still go low. But it's really good to have that 20%. It will be able to get it really well.
Okay, and the person who submitted that question, would you like to follow up? All right, Judy, did you want to ask your question? Or if you have one?
It appears
It's
I've
not
known
really,
Judy for a very
it's more
long
of a
time.
comment. Okay.
Yeah, my pump training.
Okay, question, next one. Are there stats on how much more effective a pump is in terms of time and range versus the new sensors and micro adjustments percentage-wise per day?
Can you say that again? That was a long one.
Yeah, are there stats on how much more effective a pump is, for example, time and range versus the new sensors and micro adjustments?
So there's lots of evidence. Like the pump thing, it's funny. There was some evidence about pumps being better than MDI. We knew that you could get higher time and range and less slows, but AID's taken that way above that. And without a doubt, the clinical studies, the pivotal trials that all the companies have had done, the anecdotal that we see, it's all improved.
Okay, the person who submitted that question, would you like to follow up? All right, next question. I understand that having a closed loop system is not yet approved, as you said, for use in Canada. So do you predict that it will be available to all soon?
Well, I think that the one thing that looping has shown us is because they have, again, people are doing it, is they have systems already available, not loop per se, but one of those ones have been able to sort of eliminate having to put carbs in, and it's able to do that. So I think that commercially, that's something that we're going towards. There are pumps that actually, the eyelet, which is in the US only, you just do announcements, a small, moderate, or large. I think that we're sort of moving towards that. I mean, I always feel like our insulin's not good enough. Like, how can we have it be like a regular pancreas when it takes 15 minutes to start working and 1 to 2 hours to peak? When really, when food goes in, if you actually see how quickly your blood sugar goes up, I feel like we're not quite there, but I know they're working super hard to at least eliminate the need to really put carbs in. Like, okay, it's going to be small, medium, or large. And so I do think that's coming, but I would have thought it was here already. So I'm kind of sad, having been on a pump for like nearly 30 years, I thought we would be there. But I know that everybody's working hard on it, but there's nothing that's doing clinical studies that is able to do it.
Okay, did the person who submitted that like to follow up? Okay, another question. Our endo is not keen on the pump system. She has not wanted us to pursue the system. What can we do?
Well, sometimes, there may be an underlying reason that you're not maybe realizing, but usually a good thing to do is to go to your diabetes clinic, because they spend so much more time with education and reps. Sometimes the physicians don't have enough time to learn enough about them. So when you go see your diabetes team, they can really walk through the advantages of pump therapy as well as AID systems as they come forward, because it's really rare that somebody isn't a good candidate. I mean, when I look at all like the hundreds and hundreds of people that I've started on pumps, I think I've had one person in probably, I don't know, 800 I've said, this is not a good fit for you, and have a good reason why. But it's really unusual for a physician, especially an endo, not to want pump therapy. So usually they have something in their mind, and I would say ask. Like, I think I'm a really good candidate for these reasons. Is there something that you think that I'm missing? But your team at the diabetes clinic can be your cheering squad and help you approach them as well.
Okay. The person who asked that question, would you like to follow up? All right. This is a repeat question. I mean, I'm sure you addressed it in your presentation, but can you provide information on the Dexcom 7 and Omnipod 5 closed loop again?
Say that again specifically.
Can you provide information
7?
on Dexcom 7 and Omnipod 5 closed loop system?
Yeah, so I would say look through the PowerPoint, just specifically because there's so many different things. I mean, again, it's a pod, it's adaptive, and it does give you some range. And target is the biggest thing about the Omnipod 5 is that you want to use the lowest target to get the best results. And each of the systems have that. They have their 1 to 5 things that are, this is what you do to get the best results. And your diabetes educators can really help you with them because they get a lot of education on each of these and kind of keep track of what things should be adjusted to be best.
Okay, I had a question right here. All right, so SIM, I'm not sure if that's your name or an acronym, but I've heard different ways to calibrate the G7. Would you please explain step by step the best way to do it?
Um, so calibrating it in the app type of thing, because you can, if it's off, you would go in there and find, let me see if I can go to that. Can't say as I've done that in a very long time.
Well, as Teri is looking and researching, I just want to say we are approaching 7 o'clock, and I want to thank everyone for attending. Oh, did you find your answer, Teri?
I did not. I did not find my answer when I tried to look at the app. It tells you I have never had to calibrate one. I tend to be one that if it doesn't come back into sync pretty regular, I will get rid of it, because usually there's certain things that you guys probably already know that if your CGM starts your G7 and you're low, it's really can't handle that. It can get really messed up. Press the plus sign on the BG main. So there it is. Thank you. Calibration. So on the face, there is a plus sign, and that gets it. You can tell I've never hit that. I've never entered any food into it or insulin. You can do a lot of things. Thank you, Martin.
Okay, so it is 7 o'clock, and I want to be respectful of your time, Teri. Thanks everyone for attending. If you are here and you had a question and wasn't answered, please let us know. Definitely, let us know in the chat box. If you want the PowerPoint, can you also let us know? I mean, I didn't want to have to like send it to everyone and they're inundated with another email message. But if you're interested in having Teri's PowerPoint, just let us know in the chat box and we will send it to you individually. And yeah, Lana, can you make sure you check this out? Thank you so much, Teri. I think this is a topic that is really complicated for many people. And, I look at the questions and not everything is on the AID system. Some is just like questions about pumps. So I think for you to just come here and teach us and give us more exposure is so important because we're all at different places in terms of how knowledgeable we are. I certainly am a novice. I think a lot of people here are much more sophisticated. So thank you for your time. And those of you who are on the call, just as always, if you have a topic that you want us to bring in a speaker, an expert for, just let us know. And we are happy to accommodate your requests. Thank you, everyone, and have a really great night. And we'll keep track of who wants the PowerPoint. And Teri, I think Alana already has it. So thanks, everyone.
Bye,
Hi,
everyone.
Tammy. I see your happy smile. I love your smile. And happy
Bye,
birthday,
Judy.
Ed. I hope you're
Yeah,
doing.
happy birthday. Cool.
I hope you're training dogs. Yeah.